How's it going, everybody? It's Pilot Flame, and we are back with another League of Legends video. I didn't think the patch notes were going to be out yesterday, but apparently they were, so I wasn't actually looking for them. But here we are, 10.2 patch notes. They got a new splash art here, a new setup on their website. So let's get right into it. So we got the skin highlights at the top here, so the Guardian of the Sand skins and the Dragon Slayer line. I'll just do my thoughts on them now. I think it's pretty. It's a pretty cool line, to be fair. The Guardian of the Sand skin, it kind of gives you that Egyptian, style feel. That kind of like ancient Egypt type of feel that like when you play against Nasus. And then the Dragon Slayer one kind of reminds me of the Warring Triad from Final Fantasy XIV, in a sense. Yeah. Let's move on to the buffs and nerfs and changes. So first of all, we have Aphelios. Personally, I think that Aphelios does do a lot of damage, but I still think that he's pretty simple to play around because he has limited amount of ammo in his weapons, and he also doesn't have an innate dash. So I find it very easy if you have a support like a Leona, like a Nautilus. In lane, you can punish him quite heavily, so hopefully they gear it more towards his early game so that it's easy to be punished so he doesn't get to the late game. Caliber Sniper Rifle, so the basic mark damage was 20 to all the way scaling up to 40 with a 0.3 ratio. It is now 15 with a 0.2 ratio at all levels, so obviously a big chunk taken out of his laning phase there. And the Q cooldown is now up by 1 second at max rank, or 1 second at first rank, and 2 seconds at level 9. Is that significant? It'll definitely affect his laning phase a lot, which is a good change, I think, and won't nearly impact his damage later on at the end of the game. Crescendum, the Chakram basic attack damage from 130 to 264 total attack damage to 130 to 223. 40% total damage at the end is, it's a big hit, but likely won't affect him too much. He'll still do a crazy amount of damage. And then Severum, the Scythe Pistol, so this is another weapon that's in the laning phase, so 10 to 30 plus 0.35 bonus attack damage per hit. In damage to 10 to 30 plus 0.3 bonus attack damage, so just a slight nerf there. Okay, I like these changes a lot. I think it nerfs his laning phase, which is what you want to basically do when you're dealing with a champion that's very good in the late game. You want to make it harder for them to get there, and you don't want it to obviously be super nuts at the end of the game, so which is why they take some of the Chakram. I think he'll obviously still be picked. And I think this does hamper his laning phase a bit, which is good. Draven. So, my thoughts on Draven. I think Draven is really good and has been really good for at least 6 months now. I think he was a very good answer in mid, top, and bot lane to some matchups. He's very good into Kai'Sa. He was very good into Akali in mid lane when Akali was very strong, especially if you have an adept Draven player, and was also an answer to some melee top laners as well. So our ratio damage now scales. So instead of 175, 275, 375 with a 1.1, it now is the same base damages, except it goes from 1.1 to 1.5 bonus attack damage. So 0.4 increase, which is very significant. So later on in the game, Draven's ult will do a lot of damage. I think that's a fine change. It allows basically for him to scale and not just be an early game-ish champion, but basically when he gets ahead, he's going to get ahead, as he usually does. Jinx. I think Jinx is pretty good, personally. I think it's a decent AD carry pick. I personally think that she scales better than some of the hyper carries in the game, such as Twitch and Kog'Maw in terms of just overall team fight damage, the way she can itemize. She's also very good, probably one of the better champions with Stormrazor, and she has a bit more safety because she has permanent range rather than just like Kog'Maw's W, you can only use it when it's active and get that range. And same for Twitch, you can only have increased range um, when his ult is active. And Jinx's laning phase is better. It's probably better for sure. Levels 1 through 5, I would say, because of level 2 with traps is better than Twitch's level 2 and Kog'Maw's level 2. Karma. Now, Karma top I've seen in a few games still popping around before the changes, and it's still quite obnoxious to play against. Hopefully this doesn't allow for it to be brought back, because I think it's kind of annoying. Base damage on Inner Flame is increased by what looks to be 10 at all ranks, and the base damage on W is also increased by 10 at all ranks. Okay, so that's not going to change a crazy amount at all. I am perfectly fine with that. Lulu basically needs a little bit more help in the defensive department. She's quite squishy. She kind of suffers the same thing as Soda, whereas basically if you jump on her, she just straight dies. I can't even use her defensive tools to even save herself because she just gets straight, just 100 to 0 through her shield, even if she does shield herself. So what they do, they increase their armor by less than 1, but still fine. Give her a little bit more AD. And they made her E cooldown 2 seconds less. Okay, so that's probably a fine change, I would think. Lulu's still viable in the bot lane for sure. Still a decent mid lane pick, top lane pick as well. But against bruises in the top lane specifically, she'll just get outshone up there. But in bot lane, with Nautilus and Leona being high priorities, it's something that just has to be kind of considered when picking her. You have to basically play better in the lane than the Nautilus and the Leona, because they just have to be able to set up ganks by just throwing out their hook and stuff. And yeah, it's not easy being a enchanter, apart from Zyra, because Zyra naturally just has long range and is quite good at that. Nautilus. So what did they do here? So Nautilus is basically, his damage is pretty good, but he's also super tanky with Aftershock. So they nerfed his Dredge line by 10, scaling up to 30 damage at max rank on his Q, because he does typically max Q. So the one that really matters the most is the first three. So losing 10, 15, 20 damage on Dredge line. I mean, it's probably not the Dredge line that's going to kill you. It's the 80 carry pummeling your face in, and Nautilus's Aftershock proccing as well. That is probably what's going to kill you. So that's a fine change. It's not going to change too much, but I think Aftershock potentially needs some adjustments in the early game. Maybe potentially a scaling cooldown would probably be better for it. So whereas it's not up every 15-20 seconds in the early game, maybe it's 30 to 45 seconds, and then by the time you're level 9, it's 20 seconds. Qiyana. So I personally think that Qiyana has been, when she was released, she was a decent champion. A lot of people have trouble playing against Qiyana, even though she does have matchups all over the shop, which are very easy to basically shut her down, especially in the likes of the jungle. You know, most of the early game junglers can basically pull her out. Anything in mid and top lane can bully her out, with, you know, any mage basically. And I never thought she was actually a decent pick in the jungle. I prefer it in the solo lane anyway. She reminds me of the AD version of Kassadin, but except doesn't scale as well. And to be fair, her ult's somewhat easy to play around. So basically, you would just have it to where you would just not fight in choke points, which is what North America seemed to have trouble with when playing against Qiyana and Rumble, just fighting in choke points. So that was a bit on the bad side. But let's see what the changes. So passive attack speed 20% now from 5 to 25%. So that's going to be at 5% for a long period. So yeah, probably jungle is not going to be played anymore. Just probably mid lane. Sona, let's see. Song of Celerity. So 10 to 14% plus 0.03 per 100 ability power. It's now 25% flat plus 0.04 per 100 ability power. That's her self movement speed. So it basically makes her faster. Which basically is a nice little change. Is it going to make Sona back, you know, down in the bot lane with Sona Tarek again? Probably not. Is it going to make her a standalone support? Probably not. She basically, if she wants to be played in a solo lane, she would need more base stats. So yeah, I mean, she'll probably still be like a B tier support, but nothing more than that. Thresh, additional changes from his visual updates. So Q added indicators for Pulsefire Thresh. Okay. Now properly uses Q cast effect. Okay. So it's just bug fix changes for Thresh. Okay, sure. To make it easier to see, I guess. Trundle. So what is Trundle's problem at the moment? Well, I think Trundle's perfectly fine. I think in top lane he is an okay pick. Obviously in a tank meta, and in jungle meta he's also very pretty good as well. The problem with him is that he's very one-dimensional in the fact that he has to kind of just run at you if he wants to do damage. He can be like a utility version where he just basically is put in a poke comp and uses his pillar. But I think he needs to be able to get in and get out of fights probably a bit better. You know, maybe sustain or something. He just needs to be kind of that guy who's kind of in out, in my opinion. So what they do, they increase the movement speed on his frozen domain by 10% on all ranks. Okay, fine. And then his ice pillar slow is 5% increase at all ranks. Okay, so he's basically going to be able to get in and out more times. Yeah, so that difference is basically a 15% swing in favor of Trundle, which is going to be quite noticeable. So you might see him in top lane in matchups versus high HP champions. So right now, Ornn is going to be a prevalent pick, and should have been for the last year because Ornn's been really good. But now that Ornn will be picked a lot more, he's also a counter to Ornn because he can basically shred his armor and MR once he hits like the early laning phase. Ornn will probably dominate, but once Trundle gets Tiamat's able to push out the wave, gets level 9 max in Q, he can basically just rip through Ornn. Also with the well-timed pillar, he can basically preemptively block Ornn off on his dash. Victor, passive mana bug fix. Passive glorious evolution. Victor will no longer lose a significant amount of okay, that's probably a bit detrimental to Victor players, I would think. Ziggs. So what's wrong with Ziggs? So Ziggs has a problem where he's a long range mage, but he's not very mobile, much like Xerath. Can hit you from range, and doesn't do probably as much damage as potentially what he should, or as much disruption, I would think, as what he probably should versus certain champions. So with the likes of Diana, I've played the matchup a few times. Recently, obviously, this is lower elo, but Ziggs is very easy to take care of, even though he has long range. Basically, one step forward too far, and you just 100 to 0 him. And that's probably his nature, is that he just, without barrier, basically, he's still, and even then, he's still quite weak defensively. He doesn't have like the ability to just immediately flash. He has to use his satchel charge to get away effectively. So let's see what the changes they did. We want Ziggs to have a strong way to disrupt opponents and encourage greater presence in the early game. Okay, that's good. So his bomb damage was increased by 10 at all ranks. Okay, that's probably not gonna be that big of a change, I wouldn't think. Potentially maybe an auto attack's worth over the whole laning phase or something like that, but okay, we'll accept the amount of damage. Satchel, so it now knocks back 500 distance. Okay, so he gets knocked further away, which is good for when he needs to escape. So again, allowing him to basically get away when after like a short trade, or knocking the other person back, maybe slightly more. Yeah, oh, enemy knockback distance. Okay, so he can knock them further back, which is good. So it allows him to basically throw it at them rather than throwing it on top of himself and kind of waddling and then kind of blasting himself to safety. Explosive minefield is now 20 to from 20 to 40% to now 30 to 50%. Okay, so Rylez is obviously going to be amplified and be a lot more annoying. So yeah, I think those are good changes for Ziggs. You might see him picked in very niche matchups. Always thought he was an okay pick, like a B tier mid laner. Um, I also think that he was quite good into Azir specifically, just because of his disruption, where Azir kind of just wants to stand there and attack with his soldiers. You can disrupt him with the mines, with the satchel charge. So, um, and if Azir does come back, then obviously it could be a good counter, in my opinion. Cloak of Agility. So they changed the item to 20%, so basically you just don't stack a bunch of them. I think what they should have done was just make the critical strike chance a unique passive, and that would have changed it altogether. So basically, you are with this change, you are effectively nerfing Yasuo from before, to whereas now he has to get a before he used to get PD, and then used to get a crit cloak, and then he had a 100% crit chance. This indirectly nerfs him. It also indirectly nerfs the just stacking of Cloak of Agility. They could have gone, like I said, with the unique passive, whereas it just says, basically, if you have two of these, it only gives you the 25%. It doesn't give you 50. So, is change good? It's fine by me. I think Yasuo um, was quite strong over the last 6 months. Was a very good flex pick in top, mid, and bottom, and is very good into most immobile AD carry matchups. So him being in the bot lane like Yasuo Gragas against champions like Jhin, like Kog'Maw, champions that don't have an innate dash, or they struggle against that matchup. And in mid lane, he was very good into a good bit of the mages as well. So indirect change, but overall probably not the end of the world. Frozen Heart is underperforming, so they increased it by 10 armor. Just flat change in it. It's good buff. Frozen Heart's a good item, always has been. Very specific on certain champions, but good item nonetheless. And then Storm Eraser, they are removing 5 AD off of it. Perfectly fine with this change. I thought Storm Razor is a better first purchase on most AD carries, apart from the ones that want to go Essence Reaver like Xayah. Yeah, I think it's 580 is fine. But in terms of the disparity, you'll now see more AD carries. If they're ahead, they won't go Storm Razor, or by Storm Razor by base, they'll probably go IE instead. So, Rift Herald. So they're changing the Rift Herald's HP, so its base is 750 lower than what it was, and it scales a lot lower. That's 1100 to quick math here, 2250. So basically, they're chopping off like 1,000 to 200,000, 1,000 to 2,000, sorry, off the Rift Herald's base stats. Obviously, making it so that the disparity between Dragon and Rift Herald isn't so big. I thought the first Rift Herald is very good. I thought it was very easy to take. It's going to be even easier to take now. And just using the first Rift Herald specifically to just bash down 3 plates, that's 360 gold for whoever's there for it. And yeah, you basically get a kill for doing effectively a jungle camp that people don't prioritize. So, and sometimes it is worth taking the Rift Herald instead of going for one of the earlier dragons. I believe it was LS who came up with the idea that sometimes you want to not get the first 2 dragons, depending on what they could be, in order to get a full stack of the map-changing dragon. So, as an example, first dragon is Ocean, second dragon is Mountain, but the third dragon is Cloud. The 40% reduction on your ult is obviously nuts in one big stack. So basically being able to reverse sweep all the dragons back is something that is quite good. Same with Infernal. Mountain is insane as well. Ocean probably not as big. It's just the Ocean Soul that's probably really good. But yeah. And then bug fixes. They have a bunch of different things here. I'm not sure what if this Caitlyn change affects any of the um, interesting combos that she can do, where she like nets and like triple autos and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, and then like I said, the upcoming skins, yeah, they look quite cool. I like how they do the. I personally think that the triple splash art is cool. Um, and then they have the double splash art and the single splash art. Dragon Slayer Trundle looks pretty cool. Looks pretty cool. Diana and Olaf. You could have told me that was Shyvana and I would have believed you. And then the Guardian of the Sands. So we got Guardian of the Sands, Janna, Rengar, Rise, Olaf, Trundle, and Diana all have the chromas on there. I think for the Dragon Slayer ones, the like the orangey red ones are going to be better. And then for the Guardian of the Sands ones, the brighter, like the yellows and greens will probably be a bit cooler, just because it's more thematic for that. But yeah, that's going to do it for these patch notes here. So just a quick run back of all the changes. So basically, Aphelios laning phase will be slightly hit. Draven is basically the same champion, will just deal more damage in the late game. Jinx, when she kills a epic monster, it just applies a passive as well. Nothing too big there. Probably something that was needed to be changed a while ago, but it's just a nice little change. Karma basically unchanged. Obviously, more Karma top picks will probably happen because of this, but that's fine. Lulu better in the laning phase, also a bit more defensive. Nautilus damage slightly down, but still Nautilus is going to probably be picked, even though he's somewhat easy, in my opinion, to counter. Kiana, not going to be a jungler anymore. Sona, nice quality of life, but nothing too crazy here. Thresh was just visual changes. Trundle could be used in top lane and jungle, especially versus a tank top laner or jungler. Specifically looking at Ornn. Just a bug fix for Victor. Ziggs is probably going to be good against other mages. Crit Cloak affects Yasuo and affects stacking Crit Cloaks, but overall a warranted change. Frozen Heart, good buff. Storm Razor, valid nerf. Rift Herald, very good change for that. And then a bunch of the cool skins that are coming out. So yeah, that's going to do it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe on the channel. Make sure to follow the stream as well, PilotFlame226 on all platforms. And make sure to we're on Twitter as well, so you can follow and see when the videos come out. You can also see when we go live on streaming as well. So for the next set of patch notes, it should be 2 weeks today. I want to say that's February 5th. I could be wrong, but yeah, should be something like that. So until then, I will see you guys next on patch 10.3. Happy League of Legends, everyone.